Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi comments on a Taiwan contingency is a Japan contingency, have enraged the Chinese Communist Party, prompting a series of retaliatory actions. Recently, the concert of Japanese pop star Ayumi Hamasaki in Shanghai was unexpectedly cancelled. As a result, she performed the entire show in front of an empty audience. Even more absurd, during a concert by another Japanese singer, Maki Otsuki, in Shanghai, her microphone was suddenly taken by staff in the middle of the performance and she was escorted off stage, leaving her stunned. On the evening of November 28, during the Bandai Namco Festival 2025 event in Shanghai, Japanese singer Maki Otsuki was performing the theme song Memories from the popular anime One Piece. Suddenly, all the screens and lighting on stage went dark as staff shut off the power. The performance was suddenly brought to an end and the venue descended into chaos. Witnessing this, the audience exclaimed in disbelief, "This can't be happening." And we're witnessing this in our lifetime. The host then announced this performance is now over. Some netizens directed their anger at the Chinese Communist Party, their vile and despicable actions breaking through the limits of what humanity can imagine again and again. Some even compared the CCP to the Nazis, saying that the CCP are worse. He commented, when the Nazi SS captured Jewish pianist, at least they waited until after the performance to act. Others said, the CCP is disgusting, at least let the person finish singing. The concert had already started and they cancelled it halfway through. Is this something a human being would do? How shameless is this? Is this the demeanor of a great power? A country that wants to challenge the global order can't even tolerate an artist's performance? Honestly, I like seeing things like this. It highlights the CCP's barbaric nature and serves as a warning for the world to stay away from them. Maki Otsuki's experience was not an isolated incident. Ayumi Hamasaki was scheduled to perform at the Shanghai Sports Center on November 29th with over 10,000 tickets sold. She arrived in Shanghai on the 27th to prepare for the concert, and due to the deteriorating Sino-Japanese relations, she was suddenly informed on the 28th that the concert was cancelled, leaving her stunned. In response, Hamasaki issued an apology. She explained that 200 staff members from both China and Japan had spent 5 days setting up the stage, and she expressed deep regret for the cancelled performance, apologizing to the 14,000 fans who came to watch. Despite the cancellation, Hamasaki decided to perform in the Shanghai venue, singing alone in front of an empty audience. She recorded the entire performance and stated that she would release the footage at the right time for fans who could not attend. She shared a photo of herself in a glamorous performance outfit, singing earnestly on stage. Her fans expressed deep sympathy, commenting, "I want to cry," and she did it just to give fans closure. So dedicated. Some Chinese netizens praised her professionalism, calling it an example of artist ethics and contract spirit, while others sharply criticized the Chinese government. This shows the CCP's attitude towards culture and freedom to the international community. Barbaric Shanghai. I thought people in Shanghai were cultured, educated, and sophisticated. Shanghai is no longer an international city. Known as Empress of Pop, Hamasaki has achieved great success in both the music and fashion industries, becoming an icon for Japanese youth. She remains one of Japan's most influential artists, with few able to surpass her achievements. She is also very popular in China. Before the Shanghai concert was cancelled on November 27th, in response to the Hong Kong fire tragedy, Hamasaki prayed for the victims on her official Instagram and urged fans to avoid wearing red clothing. She also cancelled the red costume and flame effects on stage, asking fans to wear black to mourn the victims. On November 29th, after Ayumi Hamasaki's concert was cancelled, fans who were unable to enter the venue did not leave. Instead, they spontaneously gathered at Hamasaki's themed cafe to show their support. The concert was not fully cancelled due to force majeure. The gathering of fans was a show of solidarity for Hamasaki, who had sung alone on an empty stage. As diplomatic tensions between China and Japan escalated, multiple Japanese artists saw their scheduled performances in China cities abruptly cancelled. Even unreleased Japanese films were pulled from cinemas. On November 17th, Japanese boy band JO1 announced the cancellation of their fan meeting in Guangzhou. On November 20th, Japanese actor Yuki Furukawa posted on Weibo announcing the cancellation of his fan meeting in Shanghai on December 6 due to unavoidable reasons and apologized to his fans. Additionally, performances by jazz musician Yoshio Suzuki and singer Akiko Yoshida Kokia, among others, were also cancelled. According to Taiwan's nextapple.com, the Chinese organized boycott of Japanese artists has caused significant financial damage to the Chinese event organizers. In addition to refunding tickets, expenses already spent on venue rentals, artist flights, hotel accommodations, equipment transport, administrative approvals, stage construction, security, and publicity are all losses. If these costs are not offset by income, the organizers face a complete financial loss. The report also revealed that when Japanese artists perform in China, organizers typically pay 30% of the agreed fee when confirming the artist's participation, another 40% when the contract is signed, and the remaining balance 2 weeks before departure. However, the timing and amounts may vary slightly depending on the artist. By the time the artist arrives in China, most of the fees has already been paid. When the sudden ban on Japanese artists performing, the Chinese organizers are left with significant losses. One netizen compared the situation to a man who, after losing outside, comes home to take it out on his wife and children, never gaining the world's recognition. Regarding the CCP's action, Japanese media expert and executive director of the Indo-Pacific Strategic Intelligence, Akio Yaita, analyzed on social media that the Chinese government's harassment of Japanese artists is an attempt to pressure Japan's government through artists and fans. The goal is to force Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi to retract her statements on supporting Taiwan. However, this indiscriminate and forced approach shows China's disregard for art and human rights, causing major losses to artists, organizers, and fans alike. Yatai noted that Japanese netizens strongly condemned the Chinese government's actions on social media. They also believe that the Japanese government must stand firm and not succumb to this kind of behavior, fully supporting Prime Minister Takaichi's refusal to retract her statement. On November 7th, during a parliamentary session, Prime Minister Takaichi stated, "A Taiwan contingency is a Japan contingency," which provoked a strong backlash from China. The Chinese government not only protested Japan's stance, but also dispatched Coast Guard fleets to patrol the Senkaku Islands and impose sanctions such as halting Japanese seafood imports. Additionally, despite China's official warnings and policies on ticket refunds, a large number of Chinese tourists continue to visit Japan, with some stating that political issues had no impact on their personal travel plans. On November 19th, an article from Civil Aviation Resources reported that within a few days of the Travel Ministry's warning, nearly 500,000 tickets for trips to Japan were cancelled, accounting for about 30% of the total bookings. Upon seeing this data, many netizens immediately questioned these figures. The most pinned comment stated, "With less than 1,300 flights a week, each flight carrying 150 people, how could 500,000 tickets be cancelled?" Analysts have pointed out that on November 15, the number of confirmed bookings by Chinese tourists to Japan was 1.5 million. However, according to the latest data, just 2 days later, this number had dropped to about 1 million, suggesting that approximately 500,000 trips were cancelled. Commentator Yan Dan wrote that the real issue is not the data itself, but the skepticism surrounding it. If no official data is trusted anymore, doesn't that mean the CCP's authority is collapsing? She questioned, "The CCP has been anti-Japanese for years, but now 1.5 million people still want to visit Japan. Doesn't that show how the regime's long-standing brainwashing efforts have failed?" After the CCP's public advisory on November 14th urging Chinese citizens to avoid traveling to Japan, there was a surge of public dissatisfaction. Netizens expressed confusion, saying, "Encouraging people to visit Cambodia while discouraging trips to Japan? What's going on here?" Some even defended Japan, saying, "This is hilarious. Too many Japanese tourists. It's time to clean up. Thanks." On the Chinese social media platform Xiaohongshu, searching keywords like Japan or Japanese entry still reveals posts from some Chinese and Hong Kong netizens who successfully entered Japan. Chinese residents in Japan have also shared that life there is normal, with some noting there are clearly many empty seats on the plane and going through custom was smooth. Everything in Japan is so cheap now, flights are incredibly affordable. Japan is normal, everything is fine, and there are many foreigners. Many people feel Japan is safe with friendly locals and the government's issue don't affect ordinary citizens.
More than 20 people have asked me if I'm safe in Japan, so let me show you. I'll turn the camera around. This is McDonald's, and you can see the streets are really quiet and clean. Anyway, I'm heading out for dinner now. We're going to have a meal at Matsuya. After working out, I'm going to have a beef bowl at Matsuya. Let's go. Here's kimchi, tofu, grilled meat, and an egg. Finished eating. Now, I'll walk home to digest. As of now, Japan is still safe. I don't know what will happen in the future, but right now, there are no issues with entering the country or anything. There are lots of tourists here. Yesterday, my colleague and I were in the city center, and honestly, there were so many Chinese tourists. So I'm not saying you should come here for sure, but it's up to you. As of now, Japan is safe.
Some people also commented, tonight I went to Xujiahui. The food court in the department store was filled with Japanese food and every restaurant was full. How can anyone claim to be anti-Japanese when the Chinese love Japan so much? On November 23rd, some netizens noticed that well-known Chinese lawyer Qi Shu-shen was traveling in Japan and posted a video showing real scenes of Tokyo. The video, which showcased the orderly nature of the city, was met with praise from netizens, who commented, "Beautiful scenery, so clean and neat, and it's ridiculous to criticize Japan while thinking like this." Many netizens also shared photos of their flight to Japan on social media, showing no empty seats. One netizen expressed surprise, saying, "I thought I was the only one going to Japan. After boarding, I saw there were no empty seats on the plane." Despite Beijing issuing a travel warning, Tokyo's businesses were largely unfazed. Shina Ito, a jewelry store owner in Tokyo, mentioned that although there were fewer Chinese customers, she was not concerned. She said, "With fewer Chinese customers, Japanese customers are visiting more, so our sales haven't really decreased." Her shop, located in Tokyo's Asakusa district, a traditional shopping area, is usually filled with tourists, with Chinese buyers making up about half of the customer base. In the upscale Ginza area of Tokyo, Yuki Yamamoto, the owner of a popular udon restaurant, told AFP that he didn't notice any direct impact on sales since the CCP issued its warning against traveling to Japan. He estimated that under normal circumstances, about half the customers waiting for a seat outside his restaurant are from China. However, he said, "I don't think there's been any sudden or dramatic change. Of course, it would be disappointing if customer numbers decrease, but we still have regular Japanese customers visiting, so we're not too worried." Japanese economic analysts estimate that the absence of Chinese tourists could result in a loss of 2.2 trillion yen, about 14.1 million US dollars. The real impact is on Chinese-owned travel companies, black car services, guest houses, and local souvenir shops, while Japanese merchants are not making much. In contrast, Japanese tourists, who spent up to 26 trillion yen, about 166 million US dollars, can easily make up for these losses with just a 10% increase in spending. This makes it easier to implement laws regulating foreigners and counter espionage, which is beneficial for the country and its people. In fact, the biggest impact has been on Chinese national airlines. According to the South China Morning Post, most of the cancelled tickets were for round-trip flights, particularly on routes from Shanghai to Tokyo and Osaka. Industry experts analyze that this wave of cancellations has caused huge losses to Chinese airlines such as Air China, China Southern, and China Eastern, with losses potentially reaching billions of yuan. Additionally, many netizens have shared their experiences on social media, stating that while outbound flights were operating as scheduled, their return flights were suddenly cancelled by airlines, forcing them to cancel their tickets. A Chinese user planning to travel to Osaka in early December posted on RedNote saying, "There was no issue with my outbound flight on December 3rd, but my return flight on December 8th was suddenly cancelled by the airline. Customer service only mentioned a recent adjustment and there were no available seats on the same airline. The prices for other dates have doubled." This experience resonated with many others, with hundreds of comments in the section mentioning similar cases. Some chose to cancel their trips altogether, while others reluctantly booked flights with ANA or rerouted through Hong Kong or Macau, increasing their cost by nearly double. Interestingly, the CCP's official media outlet Xinhua News Agency published an article titled, "Japan has already paid the price." The article quickly topped Weibo's trending list, emphasizing that the CCP's countermeasures have severely impacted Japan. It also gave Prime Minister Takaichi two options: either remain silent under pressure or become a short-lived prime minister. This could be seen as a verbal threat. The article seems to suggest a shift in criticism towards Japan, indicating that the CCP might be preparing to de-escalate. Some netizens mocked the CCP, saying it was looking for a way out of the situation. In this latest China-Japan diplomatic conflict, an increasing number of Chinese citizens are waking up to the situation. In the past, the CCP provocations would easily ignite intense anti-Japanese sentiment among the public. However, this time many are simply observing the situation, even mocking the CCP. This indicates that the CCP's tactic is no longer as effective. Despite Japan's firm stance, why has China not resorted to the same harsh measures it used in 2012, when it launched large-scale anti-Japanese protests to protest the nationalization of the Senkaku Islands? Some analysts believe that at this sensitive moment, CCP leaders understand the risk involved. Encouraging mass protests would easily shift the focus of the demonstrations from anti-Japanese to anti-CCP or anti-government, fueling widespread public anger. As a result, the government is limiting its anger on verbal protests, diplomatic outbursts, and military drills, carefully avoiding large-scale street mobilization. This cautious approach is key to Beijing's restrained response. When asked whether the CCP's anti-Japanese actions were primarily aimed at Japan or at the Chinese people, Akio Yaita stated that in a November 28th interview, "I think it's more about showing it to the Chinese people, but at the same time, it's also about testing Japan's response. It's like testing a soft persimmon. China always tries to squeeze the new Japanese prime minister to see if he or she is soft or tough. If they find the persimmon is too hard, they'll decide not to proceed. This is just a routine move."